coming this afternoon. And I wanted to remind you who's here today. This is Hannah's family, her husband and her children, and her mom and stepdad. And David and I are lawyers in the case, of course. I wanted to invite you because yesterday when everyone was out of town, the Court of Criminal Appeals issued 3 opinions in Hannah's case, 2 of them calling for reversal of her life sentence without parole. I've provided you with a little rundown of some significant quotes from those opinions that will help you in writing whatever you want to after this press conference. But I wanted to address a couple things, and that is, we're very grateful for the thoughtful opinion of the Court of Criminal Appeals, the 7 judges in the majority of the opinion who decided Hannah did not receive a fair trial. That in fact, if the testimony of the world's leading expert on salt poisoning had been presented to her jury, that it's likely her trial would have had a different result, which we think is incredibly significant. And then the opinion that joined that by 3 of those judges who added that not only is that true, but the charges, the facts charged in the indictment that Hannah was convicted under probably don't even state, they suggested strongly, that it probably doesn't even state the offense of capital murder. We think these points are so significant because it tells us pretty much where we go from here. We feel strongly that the evidence would have, and the court seems to agree with us, would have disproven the state's case, and we believe would have proven her innocence. So if a new trial will be coming, that is something we look forward to. In addition, today, we're most interested in getting Hannah home to her family. Larry, her husband of 17 years, who still goes to see her every week, over 600 miles round trip, and her children who get to see her every month, although through a glass partition, they get to see her every month. And her family and her church and her lawyers continue to support her unfailingly. So I wanted to tell you that the majority opinion calls for overturn of Hannah's case, not for that catchphrase reason of a fair trial or whatever it might be, but as a factual matter. The expert testimony by someone the court says was more qualified than anyone in the state's case. Hello, Pastor Rod, please come join us. We've got a chair right here for you. Here's Hannah's pastor. Thank you for getting here so quickly. I called this last minute. Thank you. Welcome. That the expert who the Court of Criminal Appeals said was more qualified than any state's witness testified that this child could not have been saved by medical care had he gotten it more quickly, that there's no known treatment for salt intoxication, and that there's a very high likelihood, even if a doctor were there to treat Andrew at the scene, he would have died. But more importantly, that Hannah did not have the training or the capability any more than you or I did to recognize the symptoms of salt poisoning. They're flu-like, cold-like symptoms. And it would take a long time before even a doctor would recognize them as serious symptoms. In fact, the doctors here took several hours in hospital to figure out what was going on with Andrew. So I think those facts speak very strongly that Hannah was wrongly convicted. But I also wanted to answer any questions that you had about the process. And the ones that occurred to us are that now that the court has granted a new trial, what next? Well, there's going to be a little period where we're trying to make sure that the court's opinion is final. It's called an issuance of the mandate. and we're going to try and speed that process up. Since a new trial has been ordered, the state can agree to bail for her with me, or I will ask a court for bail for her so she can return home to her family. Because the last thing that we want is for her to continue to stay inappropriately and innocent in a jail cell while she waits for decisions to be made about what happens next. The state can choose to retry her, take it to trial again, or it can choose not to retry her, not proceed with the proceeding. I expect, although I don't know it all because I've called them and they just haven't gotten back to me with their answer yet. They haven't returned my phone calls. I've spoken to a prosecutor, and I'm looking forward to hearing back from them. But they may conceivably make some sort of offer to Hannah to settle her case short of trial. And I'm going to have to talk to Hannah about what she wants to do if such an offer comes up. But barring that, I have reached out to the state about both of these issues, about wanting Hannah to have her opinion finalized early and to be released on bond to come back to her family, to her children, who she misses so much, calls regularly, sees, but when they visit, but doesn't get to hold them and nurture them and be the mom, the great mom that she is. I also think it's very important that you all should know and remember that the current prosecutor, elected prosecutor, Mr. Skirka, he is not the prosecutor that brought these charges, and he is not the prosecutor who tried this case. So he'll have to look at this with fresh eyes and determine how he views it. I look forward to a very good relationship with him, and I'm hopeful for favorable action on his part in Hannah's case. The first step being that I want to finalize that judgment and get an agreement to bail so she can come home to Larry and to Isaac and Sebastian and Emma and Izzy and Allie here, and of course her church with Pastor Rod and the rest of her family. So that's what we're hopeful for. We're looking forward to hearing back from the state about that.